America may already be in a war no one voted for, not a foreign invasion, not a declared mission, a quiet, calculated operation unfolding under our noses, guided by secret documents that not even Congress has seen. And the most chilling part? It's all been justified by one hidden memo buried inside the Justice Department, written under the direction of Pam Bondi. When Senator Peter Welch stepped onto the Senate floor this week, most people thought it was just another speech. But within minutes, his words sent shockwaves through Washington. He wasn't just talking about foreign policy. He was talking about the possibility that the U.S. government is conducting military strikes in international waters, killing dozens, and threatening to bomb foreign nations.
With respect to the threat to health care for families in your state of Florida, in my state of Vermont, you would share that concern and hope that we would resolve that.
Senator Welch, I would be happy to speak with that family too, because there are many nonprofits that help with children with terminal illnesses, and I'm involved in some in Florida. So we would be happy to talk to you about that. As to health care, the government is shut down. It's my understanding, maybe you're not one of them, but because many Democrats want health care for illegal aliens, and that's what shut down the government.
Let me
That's
be clear.
That's one of the sticking points, and I don't know if you voted
all right, well,
for that or not.
This actually is important to all of us, and the lament I have is that if this health care goes away, this premium support, it is really going to hurt families in red states and blue states. And in Vermont, I mean, we voted Democratic, but we have a lot of good folks who voted for President Trump, and their health care is jeopardized. And there's a November 1 deadline that is coming up. And the reason I'm saying this is that I think it's important for us to try to work out together a resolution that's going to be beneficial to people you care about in Florida and voted for President Trump, and people I care about in Vermont who voted in some cases for Vice President Harris and some for President Trump. So it's not just Democrats not wanting to negotiate. And in fact, we do want to negotiate, and that's why I'd encourage the President to encourage my colleagues on the Republican side to sit down with us and try to see if we can make some progress. Another topic, with the respect to voting rights in the letter that your voting rights chief sent out, we got one in Vermont, and it's a demand to get all the information on the voting file. And in that letter, or in the announcement of that letter, the chief indicated an apprehension about the voting process being taken over by, quote, the left. Now, do you have any information with respect to Vermont about a takeover of the voting process by, quote, the left?
Senator, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. We are currently involved in voter roll lawsuits in 6 states. Is that what you're referring to?
No, there's a letter that went out demanding that states, including Vermont, provide all the voting file information,
right.
Includes personal information. But when that letter was sent out—
That's perfectly legal.
But there was an assertion by the chief in this division that this was to deal with the fact that the voting process has been taken over by the left. So we got one of those letters in Vermont. And my question to you is, what do you mean by the left? And do you have any evidence that the so-called system has been overtaken by the left?
We must have fair and free elections.
No, I know that. But I'm asking for the specific basis.
And we will have fair and free elections in this country.
Okay,
Senator, I'd be happy to talk to my chief. Who was it? Who said that?
It was your chief, which I assume you would know who that is. Here's the question here, okay? There is a point of view that is in dispute here about the fairness of elections. But you have the power as the as the Attorney General to use the authority of your office to make demands on states. And you did that with Vermont. That's within your right to do it. I'm not disputing your legal authority to do it.
Is Vermont disputing turning over the information to our office?
Vermont is. The Secretary of State is. and you can resolve that with her. But
And we have every right to have that information,
yeah, here's
Senator.
where I'm
Why
going.
wouldn't they want to turn it
You're
over?
a prosecutor with the awesome authority to make the decision that you're going to start an investigation against the state or against an individual. And I know from your experience as a county prosecutor and as the Attorney General in Florida, you took seriously that obligation to have a factual basis before you'd proceed, right?
Senator, I take that role, I take my oath very seriously.
All right, so what I'm
and I
asking-
take fair and free elections in this
No,
country
we
very
all-
seriously.
we all
and that
do.
information, our office is entitled to have that information.
But
And we
the
are
question
involved
here-
in litigation on that, and I
Here's the
assume we'll be
question
involved
I
in
have.
litigation with
We have-
Vermont.
We have a Republican governor in Vermont. We had our former Republican governor was secretary, was the treasurer for many years, and also the secretary of state with election responsibility. What I'm asking is, do you or does your head of this voting section have any factual basis that you can point to that justifies your demand that Vermont turn over all this confidential voting rights information?
Well, it would remain confidential with my office, and you just said that you have a Republican governor, so it doesn't make sense what you just said. We've asked that of every state, Senator.
Right, and I'm asking about Vermont and what the factual basis is, but we can move on. You've mentioned that you can't discuss pending litigation, and I think the committee by and large accepted that answer. But I did notice that you spoke at great length about pending litigation, specifically with respect to the questions Senator Cruz asked you about the sentencing of the Kavanaugh defendant. That's pending, right?
He was sentenced to 8 years.
I understand that, but that's on appeal, right?
We will be appealing.
Right, so that makes it pending litigation. So you made an exception with respect to
No.
the Cruz questions.
Hold on. No,
but you
those
didn't
were-
answer
those were
any of the
things-
questions that you said were pending at litigation from any of my colleagues.
Those were facts that came out at the sentencing hearing. You're welcome to see the transcript of the sentencing hearing
I
with all
understand
the
that.
gruesome details of what they threatened to do to Justice Kavanaugh and other
I
justices.
condemn what that person did.
That was the sentencing.
But the point here is that that's pending litigation. You indicated you're going to be appealing. It's your right to do that. And you would not, you use that justification to not answer many other questions.
Justification, you're an attorney, Senator.
Okay.
You realize that.
I do want to go back to Homan. You know, there's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer,
Yeah,
Senator.
you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
I didn't call you.
All without a single vote in Congress. Welch said, "The president says the United States is at war. Yet, Congress never declared one." And that single sentence flipped everything upside down. Because if he's right, it means someone in power has quietly rewritten the rules of war. For weeks, reports have pointed to a series of secretive operations targeting so-called narco-terrorists in the waters near Venezuela and Colombia. 10 boats destroyed, over 40 people dead, warships deployed, fighter jets circling coastlines. No press release, no debate, just action. And when senators demanded to see the legal justification for it, they were told a classified memo exists, one written by Pam Bondi's Justice Department, that claims all of this is legal. But not one member of Congress has been allowed to read it. Not one. That's the line Welch is drawing. A constitutional red line. Because under U.S. law, the power to declare war doesn't belong to the president. It belongs to Congress. It's the single most important safeguard against authoritarian power. Yet here we are, watching a Justice Department quietly redefine that power behind closed doors that he said it plainly. No president has the legal authority to take America into military conflict without congressional authorization. But apparently, Bondi's legal team told the White House otherwise. She signed off on a memo that supposedly gives the president authority to wage war on narco-terrorists. Except the term narco-terrorists doesn't even exist in U.S. law. It's a made-up phrase that conveniently merges two things Americans already hate, drugs and terrorism, into one justification for unchecked power, and that's the genius of it. Because who's going to question a war on narco-terrorists? Nobody wants to look soft on crime. Nobody wants to sound like they're defending drug traffickers. It's the perfect cover, but Welch saw through it. He pointed out that this so-called war wasn't about protecting Americans from drugs. It was about protecting political power from accountability. Because if the Justice Department can just relabel criminal suspects as terrorists, it gives the president military authority to strike anywhere, anytime, without approval, without oversight, without limits. Think about what that means. If this secret memo is real, it could allow any future president to target anyone, foreign or domestic, under the pretext of national security. The very framework meant to prevent dictatorships could be used to enable one. And history tells us exactly where that leads. Welch invoked it directly. The Gulf of Tonkin incident that dragged America into Vietnam. The Iraq War launched over non-existent weapons of mass destruction. Each time, a president stretched the truth to justify war. Each time, Congress failed to stand up in time. And each time, thousands died while the legal justifications came later, written, sealed, and hidden in files labeled classified. Now, it's happening again. But this time, it's being done through clever wording instead of fabricated intelligence. The Constitution says Congress declares war. The Justice Department memo apparently says, not anymore. But here's where Welch's speech really hit hardest, because he didn't just talk about legality. He talked about hypocrisy, while the administration pours billions into warships and airstrikes off the coasts of South America. It's simultaneously cutting funding for drug treatment programs at home. Under Bondi's leadership, federal drug prosecutions have dropped to the lowest level in decades. Entire DEA task forces have been dismantled. Programs that help communities fight addiction, defunded. High-intensity drug enforcement programs, slashed by more than a third. So the question Welch asked wasn't just moral, it was practical. If this war is really about drugs, why are we doing less to stop them here at home? Why are we defunding the very programs that save lives while spending billions on military hardware thousands of miles away? The numbers don't add up. That it's the illusion of action, a war that looks tough on camera but does nothing to solve the problem. The Justice Department gets to look strong. The White House gets to look decisive. But addicts continue to die, communities continue to crumble, and the people who profit from chaos keep winning. That's why Welch's words hit like a warning shot. If the president wants to start a war, he needs authorization from Congress. It's not a suggestion, it's the law. And Bondi's memo, by all appearances, rewrites that law in secret. Imagine that. America's top legal office issuing a classified opinion that quietly expands presidential war powers. No public debate, no congressional vote, just a signature, a seal, and silence. This isn't speculation. It's exactly what Welch called out. He said members of the Senate have been told the memo exists, but have been denied access to it. Think about the danger of that precedent. An unelected lawyer in Washington can now decide when America goes to war, and no one outside a small circle ever gets to question it. And this isn't the first time legal memos have been used to justify the unthinkable. The Bush administration's Office of Legal Counsel once issued torture memos that redefined torture as enhanced interrogation. They were secret too, until they leaked years later, exposing the extent of what was done in the name of legality. Now, Welch is warning that history might be repeating itself. Only this time, the stakes are global warfare, not interrogation. Reports circulating in legal circles claim the Bondi memo argues that if a group is involved in drug trafficking and poses a national security threat, the president can authorize lethal force anywhere in the world. No borders, no oversight, no limits. If true, that's not law enforcement. It's an open license for war. And even if that claim is exaggerated, the fact that Congress can't read the memo means it can't be challenged. It's a silent shift in power that could reshape the entire structure of American democracy. This is what Welch meant when he said, the Constitution matters. Because it's not just an old piece of paper. It's the only thing standing between democracy and the quiet rise of unchecked power. Let's pause here. Because what's really happening isn't about drugs or terrorism or Venezuela. It's about precedent. If Bondi's secret legal opinion stands unchallenged, it becomes a building block for every future administration. One day, it could be used to justify drone strikes on foreign soil without any vote. Another day, it could be cited to target cyber threats or political dissidents under the banner of domestic security. Once the door is open, it never closes again. Welch called this the test of whether the Constitution still means what it says. Because if presidents can invent new definitions to wage war, then Congress becomes irrelevant, and the people lose their voice entirely. And yet, there's something even darker underneath. Because when you strip away the political framing, this entire narco-war serves another purpose. It shifts public focus. Instead of asking why drug treatment is failing or why overdose deaths keep rising, the narrative becomes about enemies overseas. It's not about saving lives, it's about saving face. It's the oldest political trick in the book. When you can't fix the problem, redefine it. But Welch isn't letting that slide. He reminded the Senate that America's addiction crisis isn't solved with missiles. It's solved with mental health care, recovery programs, and community funding. And those are exactly the things being gutted. So when the Justice Department claims this war is about protecting Americans, the evidence says otherwise. This isn't a war for the people, it's a war for power. A war that hides behind secrecy and patriotic slogans while eroding the very system meant to keep power in check. The most haunting part of Welch's warning wasn't his anger, it was his calm. He said it as if reading history before it happens. If we don't draw the line now, he said, every crisis becomes a pretext for war. That line could define an entire generation. Because once the government learns it can wage secret wars without public debate, democracy becomes theater. Every briefing becomes an illusion. Every authorization becomes a rubber stamp. And the people? They're left watching it unfold from behind a screen, unaware that the next operation might already be underway. What makes this story so explosive is that it's not about partisanship. It's about principle. If a government can secretly redefine what war means, then no citizen is truly safe from the consequences. Transparency isn't optional, it's survival. And yet, as Welch said, the Senate has remained largely silent. Few want to challenge the Justice Department directly. But silence is exactly how these moments slip into history, how new powers become normal, how accountability fades. That he ended his speech with a demand that should be bipartisan. Release the memo. Make it public. Let the American people see the legal reasoning being used to justify life and death decisions. Because the people deserve to know when their country is at war and why. Every generation faces a moment like this, when the balance between power and principle tilts dangerously off-center. Welch's warning is that we're living through ours right now. Behind closed doors, secret legal arguments are shaping the course of foreign policy, rewriting the rules of engagement, and expanding executive authority without a single vote. That's not democracy, it's delegation by silence. And the truth is, if this pattern continues, it won't stop with one memo. It will become the foundation for a new era of invisible wars. Wars fought without approval, fought without oversight, fought without the people's consent. That's not the future America was built for. The Justice Department was never meant to be a weapon of political will. It was meant to be the guardian of the law. But when its top officials start writing secret opinions that bend that law in the shadows, they stop serving the people and start serving power. That's what this story is about. Not drugs, not politics, but the quiet dismantling of accountability itself. That Welch's speech isn't just another political soundbite. It's a call to remember who we are as a country. Because laws only matter when leaders follow them, and constitutions only protect freedom when people refuse to stay silent. He's right. This isn't about left or right. It's about whether laws still mean what they say, whether checks and balances are more than ceremonial phrases, whether citizens still have the power to demand answers. Because if we don't demand them now, we might not get another chance. And that's why his warning matters. Because behind every secret memo, there's a precedent waiting to be born. And once it's born, it doesn't maybe the real war isn't overseas. Maybe it's right here, between secrecy and accountability. Between those who think power can be hidden and those who still believe the truth belongs to the people. If you believe that the law should protect the people, not the powerful, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Because the only thing more dangerous than a secret war is a silent public. And the truth deserves witnesses.